This is Rick Rule for Rule Investment Media, sponsors and producers of the Natural Resources Investment Symposium in Boca Raton, July 23 through 27. This is our CEO interview series where we talk to senior officials at various companies who will be presenting at our Natural Resources Investment Symposium. Please note that in every case, I or funds that I own and manage own the shares in the companies that will be exhibiting. This constitutes a conflict of interest, but it also constitutes a guarantee to you that the exhibitors have been vetted by me personally, and I like them well enough to invest my time, my treasure, and my reputation in them. Today, we are delighted to have Lon Schaefer speak on behalf of both SilverCorp, a company that I've owned for many years, and one of their investee companies, New Pacific. Lon, thank you for subjecting yourself to this interview series today, and welcome.
Thank you, Rick, and a pleasure to be here.
I think we start with SilverCorp. I'm delighted to say something that you might even know. Lon, I was the largest investor in the initial public offering of SilverCorp many, many, many years ago at 35 Canadian cents. So I've been a long-term beneficiary of the efforts of the company. If you could take us through the history of SilverCorp and then the history of the group around SilverCorp and how they came into New Pacific and the other assets, that would be useful.
Sure. Well, I mean, as you know, SilverCorp's been focused on building in the mining industry what's a bit of a rarity, that is a real business and one that's a profitable business. And as you know, our founder and chairman and CEO, Ri Feng, is a very accomplished geologist and set out to not just find what were interesting looking deposits, but things that he thought could make money. And that's really been the history of SilverCorp, finding those projects or mines that in the Ying mining district in China that are the biggest contributors to our earnings and cash flow, and what has really built the company to what it is today, based on the mines, our cash, and our investments. And if you look over to New Pacific, it was that entrepreneurial drive to go into a new country, Bolivia, look at what seemed to be some early stage but very promising projects, or the Silver Sand project in particular, and really put your money where your mouth is and make a big investment, which led to obviously a phenomenal discovery of a world-leading silver asset.
I think it's worthy to note that Roy is comfortable in countries that other people aren't, first of all. It's also worthy to note that SilverCorp hasn't merely been self-funding, it's been a dividend payer for a very long time, a rarity among junior mining stocks. But let's move on now to New Pacific, this sort of new venture for SilverCorp. Tell us what it is. Tell us what the investment attributes of this are.
Well, really, as you pointed out, New Pacific was a new venture, a public company that was introduced to an opportunity in Bolivia to acquire a project, Silver Sand. In 2016, Ri and the current VP of Exploration, Alex Zhang, visited the project, saw some very promising attributes from past sort of artisanal mining, and acquired the project with some funding, some backstopping from SilverCorp. And just as a side note, we put money in and we've been there since the beginning of the acquisition, since exploration began, since discovery was made. And from an investment standpoint, we're happy to have made 3 times our money, but we think there's more to be made, because not only has Silver Sand evolved into a project with 200 million ounce M&I silver deposit, and now as of January a PEA that speaks to a 14-year life and a very attractive economics for a silver only mine. New Pacific has gone and sort of done it again with project number 2, Carangas, and has made what looks to be a very sizable discovery in terms of a silver project, but also one that has a gold deposit underneath. And that has moved ahead quite quickly to where New Pacific is anticipating an inaugural resource later this summer, and then from there looking to fast track to complete a PEA.
Let's go back to the original deposit. I think what's striking really is the numbers more than the narrative. Talk to us about the net present value and about the IRR. Particularly talk to us about it relative to the company's market cap.
Well, yeah, from a market cap standpoint, well below the NPV of 726 million US. That's using 2250 silver, and that gives you a 39% IRR for a project that is, I would say, imminently buildable with a 310 million initial capex, and which, from a project standpoint, I mentioned the M&I is 202 million ounces. but the project over a 14-year life is going to deliver 171 million ounces of silver, and just silver. And in the first years, based on the grade profile, it's going to deliver between 15 and 16 million ounces of silver a year. And that's, from that PEA that was published in January. And when you look at that level of production, I mean, that obviously dwarfs SilverCorp's production at between 6 and growing to 7 million ounces of silver, but really sort of mirrors some of the larger primary silver producers that are out there that investors look at.
I think it's worth noting that in the prior effort in China, the capital costs, a different way of saying it is that the mine was brought in under cost and ahead of schedule. Not that necessarily will be completed again, but too often we get preliminary economic assessments that are at worst fictitious and at best optimistic. Let's move on. Let's look forward 12 or 18 months in both companies. Tell me what the progress to increased valuation is. What are the catalysts? What are the companies working on, both SilverCorp and New Pacific, that shareholders could look forward to in the ensuing 12 to 18 months?
Sure. Well, in terms of, I'll start with SilverCorp, and I'll start with our production assets. So we've got a solid operating base, and with 6.5 million ounces of silver growing to 7, we see further growth to hit about 8 million ounces of silver. That's from our existing projects, but we also see some satellite opportunities which could fold into a hub and spoke type model. That's speaking to our mining assets. Moving to our investment portfolio, New Pacific, we can see some catalysts for growth and potentially some corporate development over the next 12 to 18 months. And then the other asset that people seem to forget about in SilverCorp is our $210 million in cash and no debt. And so we've made no secret there. We have been looking aggressively around the world for new projects and bringing to those projects the same kind of philosophy, which is, can we find a project that looks like a good mining business, buy it, see a path forward to getting it permitted if it's not, and built and in operation, so it can be that cash flow stream that our mines in China have been. Switching over to... Oh,
go ahead, please.
Well, I'm just going to finish switching over to the New Pacific story. Obviously, Silver Sand has a PEA that's been published, is working on elements of to put together the permitting application, and right now is doing the community negotiations for the land access. Switching to Carangas, that second discovery, as I mentioned, has moved forward and looking to complete a resource, move on to a PEA there. And we haven't even talked about Silver Strike, which is the third project, which shows a lot of promise, has had some good drill results in an additional drill program, but really is something to save for a later day, given the priorities at Silver Sand and Carangas.
So taking these sequentially, as I understand it, the SilverCorp itself is extremely well funded, $200 million cash, no debt, which means that to the extent that they want to continue the dividend, that's achievable. Meanwhile, they are looking in the next couple of years at increasing their production from 6 million ounces a year to 8 million ounces a year. I got that one right?
Yes.
New Pacific, we have a 200 million ounce PEA, but we continue to drill. But the real upcoming catalysts will have to do with permitting and advancing this to production. That's accurate?
Yeah, and correct. And tied in with Silver Sand, it's not really drilling anymore, but the permitting and project advancement. And in parallel with the permitting aspect is a PFS is currently in progress on Silver Sand to move those PEA results forward with more certainty and be in a position with the permits to make a construction decision.
And when might investors be able to peruse this PFS?
The objective here is to have it out sometime in the fall, maybe this sooner, year. But yes, this year.
This year. That's a great answer. That's a lovely, lovely, lovely answer. The step up in certainty from a PEA to a PFS is gratifying to an old speculator like myself. Lon, tell me, because we like to deliver a curated investment experience to our audience, who in the company should investors reach out to learn more about the company, either in anticipation of the conference, which is to say before the conference, which would be my preference, or at the conference itself? Who and how do they reach them?
Well, probably the best person to reach out would be Yakun. He's a partner and a colleague of both myself and Andrew Williams, and Andrew will be attending the conference along with Yakun. Yakun works in the IR group here for both companies, and probably the best way to contact him would be through the email box investor@silvercorp.ca. So that's just investor@silvercorp.ca. And I promise you, Yakun will be responsive to any questions either in advance or during the conference.
Lon, thank you to the group for the wonderful job that you've done over 2 decades on behalf of investors. Thank you specifically for your ongoing sponsorship and support of the Natural Resources Investment Symposium. And thank you personally for subjecting yourself to this interview. I appreciate all of the above.
Thank you, Rick, and we appreciate your support and through the years, and continue to strive to make you a happy investor.
Thank you.